Today, we're doing another tier list. This is shocking, but we're going to do a tier list on death row final meals. So these are criminals who have done crime and have been convicted to the death penalty, and they have been offered a final meal of whatever they want. And there's some weird choices. Our categories are bad person, good taste, solid meal, mid meal, get out of the kitchen, or do it already. The one who asked for Jolly Ranchers is absolutely top tier. Yeah, you guys haven't even said anything about the plate of dirt.
Keep a little dirt under my pillow for the dirt.
Our first criminal on the list. Does anybody know who this is? John Wayne Gacy. I was close. What did you say? George Washington. Nope. John Wayne Gacy was an American serial killer who murdered at least 33 young men and boys between 1972 and 1978, known as the Killer Clown, due to his habit of dressing as Pogo the Clown for community events. Gacy lured his victims to his home where he tortured, did other things, and ultimately would kill them. Gacy was convicted of his crimes in 1980 and executed by lethal injection in 1994. Yeah, he dressed up as a clown and was a pedophile and a murderer and just general not cool guy with a taper fade. So just goes to show that not everybody should have a taper fade. John Wayne Gacy's last meal consisted of a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, a dozen fried shrimp, French fries, fresh strawberries, and a Diet Coke. John Wayne Gacy had a personal connection to KFC as he managed 3 of their restaurants during his arrest. So our boy fucking ate. And I don't mean in a slay kind of way. He did kill people, so he slayed. Okay, that's confusing. Looks fucking awesome. The Diet Coke is a little bit of a weird option because I'm gonna level with you guys. If it's my last soda, I'm going for a Coke. You know what I mean? I think for this one personally, bad person, good taste, I'll give him that. I would take away the diet, just have regular soda. Timothy McVeigh was an American domestic terrorist responsible for the Oklahoma City bombing on April 19th, 1995, which killed 168 people and injured over 600 people. It was the deadliest act of terrorism in the US prior to 9/11. His final meal consisted of 2 pints of mint chocolate chip ice cream. I have a take that may be based, it may be bad, but I have a hard time eating foods with mint in them because mint is for toothpaste and gum, and those are 2 things that you don't swallow. So when you put mint into foods that I'm supposed to swallow, no. Do I think that eating a dessert as your final meal is a little bit based because it's your final meal? Yeah, kind of. Fuck it. Eat till you're sick. I mean, what are you gonna do? Ruin your favorite food? Okay, well, don't have to deal with that. I'm gonna say mid-meal because I like the idea of dessert, but I will say the mint chocolate chip, not hitting for me. Ricky Ray Rector, American convicted murderer. In 1981, Richter killed a police officer, Robert Martin, after first killing a civilian in a nightclub altercation. Interesting timing for that. Following the murders, he shot himself in the head, resulting in a lobotomy that left him with significant cognitive impairments. His mental state raised questions about his competence to stand trial and then be executed. Despite these concerns, he was executed by lethal injection on January 24th. His meal was kind of a banger. Steak, fried chicken, cherry Kool-Aid, and pecan pie. Pecan pie. Do you guys say pecan pie or do you say pecan pie? Where's the veggies? Last meal, you know? This meal would make me fart out my ass for days, but it doesn't matter because I wouldn't have days. I'm gonna put it under solid meal. That's a solid fucking meal. But does anybody know who this is? Don't look at the URL, you cheaters. Steven Anderson was an American convicted murderer and habitual criminal who was executed in California in 2002. He had a long criminal history that included burglary, escape from prison, and murder. He was sentenced to death for the 1980 murder of Elizabeth Lyman, an 81-year-old retired piano teacher, during a burglary of her home. So Steven Anderson's last meal consisted of, kinda based, 2 grilled cheese sandwiches, a pint of cottage cheese, corn, peach pie, chocolate chip ice cream, and radishes. There was no specific reason given for his choice of the meal, and it appears to reflect his personal preferences. This is kind of a random, why the radishes? Like, did he just eat them? Like, maybe he just never had them. Honestly, that's kind of based to, like, on your final meal, be like, you know what I've never had? And then just order something that you've never had before. That would suck if you didn't like it, though. French people eat radishes with butter and salt. Why are French people? This looks really tasty, but it's kind of just like a charcuterie board of like randomness. Even in your last days, I would like to see some sort of like medley here. I'm gonna say mid. I'd eat it. If somebody walked in here right now with this meal and was like, here you go, I'd be like, okay, yeah, sick. It's like a little bit missionary style for me, I think is what it is. Angel Nieves Diaz, executed in Florida in 2006 for the 1979 murder of Joseph Nagy, a manager of a Miami strip club during a robbery. He maintained his innocence throughout the time on death row. His execution garnered significant attention due to complications that arose during the procedure, which took 34 minutes instead of the usual 15, leading to claims of cruel and unusual punishment. Wow, that is horrific, actually. If you have one job and the job is to like unalive somebody, like you'd think that you could get that right. You know what I mean? He actually declined a special last meal, so he was served the standard prison meal, which he also refused to eat. The meal that he had was this. It was no final meal. It's the tray edible. I mean, anything is edible once. Now, I feel like I shouldn't rank these based on what's coming up, but I'm gonna do it anyways. I'm gonna say get out of the kitchen because stop. Just I'm gonna make a statement that I am ranking these purely based on the culinary aspect of them and whether I think that I would eat that. Which would be edible if the TV show is It a Cake? Really, anything could be cake. Any one of us could be made of cake. Look to your left and to your right. Are you fully confident that those things are not cake? Are you cake? Ronnie Lee Gardner was an American criminal executed in Utah in 2010 for the 1984 murder of attorney Michael Burdell during an attempted courthouse escape. Gardner had a history of violent crimes, including the murder of a bartender in 1984. His execution drew attention because he chose to die by firing squad, a method still available in Utah at the time. Gardner's case highlighted issues around capital punishment, the choice of execution methods, and the long duration inmates can spend on death row. The hell? Brother, that soul patch is like a soul acre. Damn, he really looking right into your soul, isn't he? That's a landing strip. Ronnie's final meal was steak, lobster, apple pie, vanilla ice cream, and 7-Up. He also requested to watch the Lord of the Rings film trilogy while eating his meal. Kinda based. No, he did not eat the Lord of the Rings DVD. Would they let you eat something that wasn't edible as your final meal? Yeah, so if I was like, for my final meal, I'd like a Scrub Daddy soaked in peanut butter. Would they be like, okay. But if you asked to eat a Tide Pod so you can see why those kids did it. I just want to know. You know what? I think maybe as my final meal, I would have a bunch of little mini bowls of things that you're not supposed to eat, like the do not eat packets, and also a packing peanut, and also a key. Oh, also slime from those TikToks. The fluffy pink insulation in the walls. I just want to try it. Unfortunately, I do think that this is a pretty based meal, like surf and turf with pie and Lord of the Rings. Pretty based. This is one that you guys probably will recognize. Theodore Bundy. No, that's not Bob Saget. It's not. Ted Bundy was an American serial killer and necrophile who confessed to the murders of at least 30 women and girls across several states between 1974 and 1978. Known for his charm and intelligence, Bundy used these traits to lure his victims, often pretending to be injured or impersonating an authority figure. His modus operandi, what the fuck is that, Latin? Included bludgeoning and strangling his victims, followed by acts of bad things. Bundy escaped from custody twice before his final capture in 1978. He was convicted and sentenced to death, and he was executed in the electric chair in Florida on January 24th, 1989. This guy is such an interesting case, and I'm sorry, but it is so wacky when people are like, oh, Ted Bundy was so hot. It's like, ew! Stop. Stop it. Sending them fan mail in prison and shit. I know, right? It's fucking weird. So Ted Bundy declined a special last meal. So he was given the standard last meal in Florida's prison system, which is steak, eggs, hash browns, toast, milk, coffee, and juice. He didn't eat any of it. I don't know why he didn't get an empty plate picture like the other guy, because if he didn't eat it, but that looks like a fucking good meal. It's kind of interesting that their default meal would be breakfast. Imagine they kill you in the morning. Oh, true. God, that would suck. I'm so not a morning person. Like, I'd have to get up early and then that happens. Would you rather be killed? I mean, not at all, but like, I'd still be cranky from waking up. It's a really good meal. I love breakfast. You ever gone to a Denny's at like 1 in the morning? That shit hits like no other. Does anybody know who this is? Don't look at the URL. Cheaters. It's Jerry from Parks and Rec. Holy shit. Alan Lee Davis was an American convicted murderer executed in Florida in 1999. He was sentenced to death for the 1982 murder of Nancy Weiler, who was 3 months pregnant, and brutal killings of her 2 kids during a robbery at their home in Jacksonville, Florida. Davis's execution was controversial due to the graphic nature of the procedure. He was executed in the electric chair, and his death was marked by significant bleeding, leading to debates over the humanity and reliability of the electric chair as a method of execution. So they gave him the electric chair, but it did not, it did him dirty a little bit. So once again, you got one job. Jerry's meal, or not, what was his name? Alan's meal was lobster, fried potatoes, half a pound of fried shrimp, 6 ounces of fried clams, half a loaf of garlic bread, and 32 ounces of A&W root beer. I mean, 32 ounces of A&W root beer? Jesus Christ. Mans was hydrated the fuck up. I love root beer though. Everything else looks pretty good. Fried clams, yummy. Garlic bread, yummy. Root beer, yummy. This is a pretty good meal, unfortunately. Bad person, good taste. These next ones are gonna get a little wacky though. Teresa Lewis. She was an American woman executed in Virginia in 2010 for her role in the murder for hire plot that resulted in the deaths of her husband, Jillian Lewis, and her stepson, Charles Lewis, in 2002. She conspired with 2 accomplices who carried out the killings. Lewis's case garnered widespread attention and controversy, particularly because she was the first woman to be executed in Virginia. Go women. And nearly a century, and due to concerns about her mental competence and the fairness of her sentence compared to those of her co-conspirators. We can do anything. Women's rights and women's wrongs. Teresa Lewis's last meal was 2 fried chicken breasts, sweet peas with butter, a Dr. Pepper, apple pie for dessert. Ew. If it's your last meal and you can have anything and you're picking peas, get out of the kitchen with that. I'm sorry. The peas ruin anything. You can put anything on that plate. The peas are fucking the whole system up. Fuck that. Sacco and Vanzetti? I don't know how to say their names. Were Italian-born American anarchists who were controversially convicted of murdering a guard and a paymaster during the 1920 armed robbery of the Slater and Morrill Shoe Company in Braintree, Massachusetts. Their trial, held from 1920 to 1921, was highly contentious, with many believing that the evidence against them was insufficient and their conviction was influenced by anti-immigrant and anti-anarchist sentiment. Despite widespread protests and appeals, they were executed by electric chair on August 23rd, 1927. Over time, their case has become a symbol of injustice and the perils of prejudice in the legal system. Okay, throwing it back a little bit to the old days. What do you think he's holding right there? Oh, they're handcuffed. I didn't even realize that they were handcuffed to each other. The guy on the right is mewing. Oh, for sure. All right, their meal, according to this article, was this: soup, tea, meat, and toast. Yeah, what kind of meat? You can't just say meat. That's what the cafeteria lady says. So this was 100 years ago. So I could give them the grace of they don't have access to KFC like we do. But I'm not going to, because it looks bad. I'm gonna say mid-meal though, because can I in good conscience say that anything on this plate is worse than an empty plate? No, but it's mid. Yo, mom said we could have beef rectangles for dinner. Let's go. Beef rectangles. Ronnie Threadgill was an American convicted murderer who was executed in Texas in 2013. He was sentenced to death for the 2001 murder of Dexter McDonald, whom he shot during a carjacking. His case went through numerous appeals before his execution was carried out. His case attracted some attention due to debates over the fairness of his trial and the application of the death penalty. He was executed by lethal injection. Oh, it says Ronnie did did not receive a special last meal. In 2001, Texas abolished the practice of granting special meals requests for death row inmates. Instead, he was served the same meal as other inmates: baked chicken, mashed potatoes with country gravy, green beans, sweet peas, cornbread, and a choice of tea, punch, or water. Oh, come on. Texas, come on. You know, I feel bad for him. It's not his take, but it's not a good meal. Mid-meal, but not good for sure. Oh, we've got another old-timey fella. Fritz Harman was also known as the Butcher of Hanover, was a German serial killer who murdered at least 24 young men between 1918 and 1924. He lured his victims, often homeless or runaways, with promises of work or shelter. Then he would do what you would assume and then kill them, typically by biting through their throats. He was suspected of dismembering the bodies and selling the flesh on the black market, though these claims remain controversial. He was arrested in 1924, confessed to the murders, and was executed by guillotine on April 15th, 1925. Holy heck. His last meal was a cup of Brazilian coffee and an expensive cigar. That's crazy he ate a whole cigar. Do you think if he were to eat the cigar, he would eat it like a corn in the cob? Or like a carrot? That's kind of sick. I mean, like imagining somebody at the end of the line about to get guillotined, smoking a fucking cigar and sipping a coffee is like objectively kind of cool. But also, I don't want to eat a cigar. Guy sounds awesome. What'd he do? He brutally murdered people and bit through their throats. So that's a solid meal. Not really a meal, but the concept of it is just, there's something about it. This one's hard to Google because, not to be confused with Charles Manson, our next one is David Manson. He was a convicted murderer who was on death row in the United States. He was sentenced to death for his involvement in a particularly brutal crime. In 1982, Manson and his accomplices were convicted of the kidnapping, robbery, and murder of a man named John Doe, so we don't know his name. The crime involves severe violence and it was part of a broader pattern of criminal behavior. Yeah, why does he have the same haircut as every TikToker? His final meal was a cup of water, and I understand that this cup of water makes it look like it's like the God cup, but it's the only picture I could find that was in the resolution that I was looking for. So it was normal ice water. It wasn't holy water. It wasn't holy water. It was just regular water. I love a good glass of water. Don't get me wrong. What I don't like is ice water. It makes the water taste worse when you put ice in it. For me, get out of the kitchen. Get out. I like my water so warm that the bottle around it starts to melt and there's microplastics in the water. The only way that we can fight microplastics is to become macroplastic. And that is my quest. Robert Alton Harris was an American convicted murderer who was executed in California's gas chamber in 1992. He was convicted of the brutal 1978 murders of two teenage boys, John Majewski and Michael Baker, in San Diego, California. The crime occurred during a carjacking. Harris kidnapped the boys, drove them to a secluded area, and then killed them to steal their car, which he used to rob a bank. His case became notable for several reasons. It highlighted issues related to the death penalty, as his execution was the first California since 1967. His case went through extensive legal proceedings, including multiple appeals and stays of execution, which brought attention to the lengthy and complex nature of the capital punishment process in the United States. It says his final words were, "You can be a king or a street sweeper, but everyone dances with the Grim Reaper." I'm 14 and I'm deep. Robert Alton Harris's last meal before his execution was substantial and included a variety of items. He requested and was served a 21-piece bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, 2 large Domino's pizzas with no anchovies, a bag of jelly beans, a 6-pack of Pepsi, a pack of Camel cigarettes. This meal is often cited as one of the most elaborate and indulgent last meal requests among death row inmates. 55 burgers, 55 fries, 55 tacos, 55 pies, 55 Coke, 100 tater tots, 100 pizzas, 100 tenders, 100 meatballs, 100 coffees, 55 peppers, 55 shakes, 55 pancakes, 55 pastas, 55 peppers, and 155 taters. And then they said, all right, it's his last one. He was, he was trying to give himself a heart attack. He wanted to go out on his own terms. He was like, okay, I gotta eat all this food and I gotta think of a mediocre thing that some high school kid could write in their yearbook as my last words and then call it a day, boys. That being being said, I do like the utilization of state funds, so I'm gonna say good take. This next person's name is James Edward Smith. It might be this guy. It might be this guy. It might be this guy. This could be who it is, but it could be this guy. Survey says it's this guy. James Edward Smith was an American convicted murderer who was executed in Texas for the 1983 killing of Larry Don Rojas during a robbery at an insurance office in Houston. Smith, who had a history of mental illness and claimed to be a voodoo priest, attempted to avoid capture by invoking his religious beliefs and engaging in erratic behavior. In addition to that, one of the most notable aspects of Smith's case was his unusual last meal request. Instead of a traditional meal, he asked for a lump of dirt, which he intended to use for a voodoo ritual. This request was denied and he was given a cup of yogurt instead. A cup of yogurt is such a kick in the dick. Like, that's not an alternative to let him do his voodoo thing. Yeah, because I would have liked to see it. Listen, hear me out. Can I just say something without everybody getting mad, okay? Let me talk for a second, okay? How many times have you guys eaten a bunch of dirt that you can confidently tell me that it would be worse than other things? Also, the voodoo would have been fucking sick. Putting dirt above the holy water is insane. I really don't like cold water. Ice water hurts my teeth. Dirt has mold in it. Well, what do you think he's gonna, you think he's gonna die from it? Gerald Lee Mitchell was an American convicted murderer executed in Texas for the 1985 killing of Charles Marino during a robbery. Mitchell, who was 24 at the time, shot Marino while attempting to steal drugs. He was also implicated in another fatal shooting that occurred the same day. After being convicted of Marino's murder, Mitchell was sentenced to death. His choice for a death row meal was big old bag of Jolly Ranchers, which there's some logistics here. I feel like this maybe was a little bit of a strategy here because Jolly Ranchers take a while to eat. You can't bite through them very well. So because they gave him a whole bag of Jolly Ranchers, did he get to bide his time by saying, hold on, I got to get through this whole bag of Jolly Ranchers? Do I have to put Jolly Ranchers above dirt? Yes. I'm gonna say solid meal. Weird, but some days you just wake up and you want a fucking whole bag of Jolly Ranchers. Like, I get it. If you get an upset tummy, if you get a tummy ache, okay, great, whatever. Philip Ray Workman, who's an American convicted murderer in Tennessee for the 1981 killing of Memphis police officer Lieutenant Ronald Oliver during a robbery at a Wendy's. Workman, who struggled with drug addiction, claimed the shooting was accidental and maintained his innocence regarding the intentional killing. His case drew attention due to controversies over the evidence and allegations of police misconduct. Despite appeals, he was executed by lethal injection in 2007. Sir, this is a Wendy's. Workman made an unusual last request for a large vegetarian pizza to be donated to a homeless person, which was denied, but inspired many to donate pizzas to the homeless in his honor. A little odd to do it in his honor. I get the sentiment because they're kind of saying ACAB, but would it be that hard to donate a pizza to the homeless shelter? Or at least just fucking tell him that you did it. You know what I mean? Free him, he did nothing wrong. Okay, well, I've got bad news for you. That's actually wacky that he was like, nope, my final meal, donate it to the homeless shelter. And they were like, nah, sorry, that's a good thing. We can't do good things. Although it's not bad person, good taste, I think that the sentiment, for whatever reason, I just wish the pizza would have been delivered, even if it was Pizza Hut. So this final one is actually interesting because this isn't the first person that's ever done this. There's actually been multiple people that have done this. Victor Figuer. He was a convicted murderer and executed by hanging in 1963 at age 28. Is this guy 28? And proved to be the last federal inmate executed in the US before the moratorium on the death penalty, which ended in 2001. He was also the last person to be put to death in the state of Iowa. I don't know what he did because it doesn't say it on here, but it says that he made an unusual last request, and his final meal that he requested was a singular olive with the pit left in hopes that when he was buried, the olive would grow out of his body into an olive tree as the symbol of peace. There's actually been like a couple people that have done this. It's not really how digestion works, but you know, I fucking love olives. I'll sit there and I'll eat olives like all day long. Love them. I love to put them on my fingers and I look like Mewtwo or E.T. You guys don't do that? You don't put them on your fingers and pretend you're Mew? Weird reasoning behind it though. I'm gonna put it immediately in front of the plate of dirt. Not as deep as he said it was. For that reason, mid-meal. Okay, now the question begs, what would your guys' last meal be? Considering the range is from everything at a Pizza Hut to a plate of dirt. Nobody said ass. A little disappointed.